الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. From بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, the longer I live, the more I reflect on Islam and on the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more I am convinced that at the end of the day, the only thing which matters is what we practice, what we are able to show the world. And show the world not because we are in the business of showing anybody anything, but because the world watches. So if we practice Islam, then that is effective. If we do not practice Islam, then that is also effective in a negative sense. And that's the reason why we have all these classes that we are trying to do now for the last 1 year here in America. All of them actually, Living Islam, Akhlaaq of the Ummati, lessons from the Anbiya alayhimus salam, and right now we are looking at lessons from Surah Al-Luqman, lessons of Luqman alayhi salam. Before that we looked at lessons from the life of Hatim al-Atham, rahmatullahi alayhi. So different things. The whole point of all of this is to give us some pointers, give us some ideas, give us some thoughts, some reflections on, number one, the importance of living by our beautiful religion, and to ensure that we practice that in our lives. As somebody said, every time you take a deep breath, reflect on this, that this breath that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you is not only His blessing, but it is a responsibility. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us 1 day more, 1 year more, 1 minute more, in 1 hour more in our lives, then that minute, that hour, that day, that year must be spent in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Somebody asked me a question the other day, and they said that how can faith help us to identify and live by the purpose of our life? And I replied and I said, it's about a strange question. What else other than faith can help you to identify and live by the purpose of your life? Because after all, without faith, then it seems that purpose of life is to continue to exist, to survive, to eat, to drink, to do whatever pleases us, to make a few babies or have some relationships, and then one day you die. So I said, what is the difference then, if that is what life is supposed to be, what is the difference between you and a cockroach? Or you and any non-human creature? And I'm saying specifically cockroach, because cockroaches are, we look down on them and we consider them to be beneath our dignity, and we stamp on them and kill them. But we know that in the event of a nuclear holocaust, probably the only thing which will survive are cockroaches. So they're pretty strong as far as surviving is concerned. But is that how we want to look at ourselves and think of ourselves, as cockroaches, creatures without purpose? Just living, breathing. To breathe is not to draw breath, is not to live. To live is not to draw breath. To live has to be a lot more than that. To live has to be something which has significance, which has value, and which yields results in our life. And again, as I said, it doesn't matter who is watching you, it doesn't matter who is applauding you or criticizing you or what. The only thing which matters is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. So do what you do sincerely, if only to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And peg yourself on doing the best that you can do. Absolute excellence in what you do. Do what you do to the best of your ability, not because of who is watching, but because of who you are. Think of it and say that this is my work. Even if no one sees it, it's still my work. And I want that work to be my best representative, because my work is my representative anyway. Whether I like it or not, my work is my signature. My work is my face. My work is my persona. My only choice is, do I want an ugly face or do I want a beautiful face? That's it. If face it is going to be, no matter what you do or don't do, this is what will be out there. And as I said, the out there, the only one who matters there is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla jalaluhu. So do your work sincerely only to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, and do it to the best of your ability because Allah is watching. Not for anybody else, because Allah is watching. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then will make that work beneficial for all concerned. Yeah, it's not a matter of looking at, and that's the reason why I'm so dead against all this social media stuff. I mean, I know this is also going on social media. What else can we do? But the point is that to follow that, I mean, using it as a tool like we are using it is one thing, but to continuously follow it, and also what's much more, what is really damaging, is to peg yourself based on the popularity on social media. Today, there are people who are popular on social media who should be banned from ever opening their mouth. But they are there. I mean, they are there, and they've got millions of followers and so on and so forth. That is not an indication of anything. It's not an indication of scholarship. It's not an indication of buzurgi. It's not an indication of sincerity. It's not an indication of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not an indication of anything at all. The problem is that the people who are watching us, the people who are looking at us, are not seriously. I mean, I'm sorry to sound unkind. They're not qualified to judge. They don't have the ability to judge. So that's why somebody looks at a person and says, "Oh my God, fantastic! What a great scholar!" I mean, do you know what a great scholar is? Have you ever met a great scholar? Do you know what are the criteria of judging whether somebody is a great scholar or not? And I'll tell you what is the criteria, what is not a great scholar. I am a criteria, what is not a great scholar. I've said this a million times. I am not a great scholar, so stop calling me a great scholar. Look for, there were times when people actually were in the presence of great scholars. And so they had some discretion, they had some criteria of judgment. Today, unfortunately, we are living in a world which is bankrupt. So who do we judge against? And that's why don't go in there to judge anybody, right? You are not qualified. I'm not qualified to judge. Forget that. Look at, or listen to, not even look at, listen to what the person is saying. Take from it what is good and apply it in your life. I mean, if we can do this much, I think we are onto a good thing. Our brothers and sisters, we are looking at the Akhlaaq of the Ummati, and in that we are looking at the ayat of Surah Al-Furqan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned his particular and his favorite slaves, who he called Al-Ibadur Rahman, the Ibad of Ar-Rahman, the slaves of the one who is most beneficent and most merciful. And in that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the qualities of Al-Ibadur Rahman which he likes. And in those qualities, we mentioned some other qualities earlier, so I won't repeat that. Today we look at the quality where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, who do not witness falsehood, and if they pass by some evil play or evil talk, they pass by it with dignity. My brothers and sisters, to live Islam is to live thoughtfully, to live with an understanding of the consequences of action, to understand that we are free to choose, but no choice is free. Every choice comes with a price tag. To choose wisely and consciously and pick what is best for our everlasting future. That is Islam. There is no place in Islam for the useless, the wasteful, the thoughtless, or the futile. For that which distracts, which intoxicates, which makes us forget our Creator, our purpose, and our future. Lagh is the term that is used here. And lagh is the term that the Quran uses to describe all of those things which are considered at best wasteful and at worst positively sinful and punishable. Music tops that list easily, especially string and wind instruments. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah specifically forbade the use of string and wind instruments, and that applies to those sounds. It doesn't apply to the strings. It applies to the sounds that come from those instruments. Believe me, when we look at some of these things, the obvious question immediately was, oh, so what's so bad about that? So what's so bad about a guitar? What's so bad about a flute? This is where the issue of test of faith comes, where we say as Muslims that I am not going to argue about something that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited. I'm not going to argue about something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. The reason being that I believe as a Muslim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is best and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows what is best and I do not know what is best. Now, if this is not our basic fundamental position, then it's impossible for us to really believe and to really have faith and iman and to accept and take what has been made halal and to leave what is haram. We will always and forever be stuck in this confusion of shubuhat and shukuk, of doubts and of suspicions, where we will never be able to believe, because constantly it will be our own logic and our own so-called intelligence in conflict with the revealed word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why I am not even going to go into any justifications or arguments to say, oh, this is the reason, that is the reason. For everything I tell you, you will have a counterpoint. I don't want to go in there. I want to simply say to you that I believe what my Rabb Jalla Jalaluhu tells me. I believe what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells me, and I try my best to follow that to the best of my ability. If I make a mistake, if I fall short, then I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me. I don't argue against it. I don't say it is wrong. I don't say that I know better. I don't say any of that. I follow it. I agree with it. I accept it. I follow it to the best of my ability. I try to follow it. And if I fall short, and we are all human, we fall short, then I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu to forgive me for that. My brothers and sisters, think about this, the issue of intoxication, the issue of forgetfulness, the issue of something influencing your mind. Anyone who understands music needs no convincing about the intoxicating effect it has on one's senses and the involuntary movements that it forces the body to do. The thoughts that it invokes and the reactions that it creates. None of them lead to anything except momentary pleasure, leading to long-time trouble. Just listen to any tune, and there are so many tunes on the internet. I don't know. I'm tempted to suggest a few to you, but I don't want to do that because sadly the videos that go with them on YouTube are an even bigger fitna than the tune itself. So I'm not going to suggest, at least I don't want to be the one to suggest those things to you, but I'm sure all of you are much more than me aware of the effect of music. One of the simplest things, if you just listen to drums, for example, right, your foot will start tapping in time, in tune to the beat of the drum. The same thing applies to almost anything else. Your body intrinsically reacts. And you might say, well, if this thing is so natural, if this thing is so much in it, why is it prohibited? It's not a foreign thing. To respond to music is in our system, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it like that. So it's in our system. It's such a natural thing that we love listening to music. Music, sends us off into another world. Music takes us away from, and especially if you are in some stressful situation, listening to music takes you away from there. So you're happy about that this has taken you. It hasn't taken you anywhere. You're still there. And when that music ends, you have to open your eyes to the same stress that you are in. But at least momentarily, it gives you this feeling of elation and the feeling of escape. And then, of course, it's something that it completely and totally takes you it's like being a flood. You forget everything. You forget all your surroundings. You forget everything. And depending on the music, depending on the surroundings, and then you might start dancing to it and so on and so forth. And if somebody just mutes the thing, and you see those dances, you know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, I don't have to explain these things to you. I think all of this is available, and I'm strongly telling you, please do not watch all this. Do not watch all this. Don't watch those music videos. Don't watch those dances. Just take my word for it. And I don't think I know you guys, right? So the point is that you know and I know the reason why it is prohibited. So if somebody says that here is something which is so natural, so in our system, why is it prohibited? You know, my definition of civilization is to do, is not to do, not to. And my definition of civilization is not to do that which comes naturally except in an appropriate situation. Right? So in some cases, to be civilized is not to do something, even though it's natural. In other cases, it is not to do that thing in that spot, in that place, at that time, even though it's very natural, but to do it in some other place, some other time. Right? Now think about this. When you were less than a year old, when you wanted to go, what did you did? You went. Right? And you said you were a little 6-month old guy, and if you could talk, you would have said, when you got to go, you got to go. But what do you do today? When you got to go, you go to the place where you got to go, and then you go there. You don't go where you are. That's civilization. And may Allah protect us all from these ailments. If somebody who has dementia, what does he do? He does what he used to do when he was 6 months old. So when that happens, you say, oh, it's okay, it's natural. Go wipe it up. No. To overcome, to control natural urges. We have all kinds of urges. And I don't want to make a list of urges. We have all sorts of urges. Let me tell you some decent ones and things which we, for example, dieting. What's dieting? Dieting is to control our urge, a natural urge, for carbs, for sugars, and for quantities of food. I mean, put me in front of some proper Hyderabadi biryani. And sorry, my apologies, because there's nothing else which is called biryani, right? So it's a Hyderabadi biryani. Put me in front of a pot of Hyderabadi biryani. I mean, I will eat that thing. Left to myself, I would like to eat that thing, including the pot. But I don't. If I did, I would not be sitting here. You would be doing Fatih on my khabar. I don't. I control myself and I say I will eat only so much, because if I eat more, it's going to harm me. Sweets, I love sugar. I love sweets, especially Hyderabadi sweets. My family, my mother's side of the family, we are famous for the kinds of sweets we make. But believe me, I mean, some of those things I do not even eat maybe once in a year. And I'm not the only one. I'm sure any of you, and today nowadays, I mean, everybody is on some diet or the other. Somebody is doing keto, somebody is doing intermittent fasting, somebody is doing something else. We are controlling what is natural. There's nothing unnatural about hunger. The most natural thing in the world, we control it. What about anger? Is it natural or not natural? It is natural. But what do you say? Who is a civilized person? Somebody who raves and rants and foams at the mouth every time he gets angry, or somebody who gets angry, but then who expresses that anger in a positive way, keeping in mind and being careful about the dignity and self-esteem of the other person. So I can tell you that I am sorry, I do not like what you have said, I do not like what you did, this is the reason why it is wrong, I am very upset with this, I am very angry about this, and I can say that to you in a very decent, very polite manner. Right? So also music. Is it natural? Yes, it is natural. I am the last person to say it's not natural. Is it natural to be attracted to it? Yes, of course it is natural. Is it natural to be swayed by it, to be affected by it? Yes, of course it is natural. But what should we do? We should do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do. We should do what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to do. And that is, leave it alone. Do not fall into that trap. Leave it alone. Don't do that. My brothers and sisters, those who try to legitimize this and those who try to say, no, it is haram, it is halal and so on and so on, they are trying to legitimize what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have prohibited, and therefore they must be aware and they must beware of the consequences of their actions. Now, some evidence of this. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قَدْ أَفْلَهَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, successful indeed are the believers, those who pray, who establish their salah with khushu', with submissiveness and sincerity, and those who turn away from all lagh. عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. I'rad from the lagh. And in Islam, and as I said, lagh has been interpreted as all kinds of dirty jokes, obscenity, profanity, all sorts of false, evil, all lies, everything that Allah has forbidden. In Islam, those who commit a sin, those who aid and abet in it, in that commission of that sin, as well as those who are silent witnesses to it and who do nothing to stop it, are all considered partners in crime. If somebody is doing ghibah, if somebody is backbiting, the person speaking and backbiting is a culprit. A person listening to that is also a culprit. And they are both equally culpable in that particular matter, which is haram, and it is haram to the extent where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that backbiting is like eating the flesh of your dead brother. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran, and Allah in Surah Al-Hujurat, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. Allah said, don't you find this disgusting? Why do you do that? Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised punishment. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who does ghibat of somebody, the good deeds of this person who is speaking and those around him or her who are listening are transferred to the account of the one who they are criticizing. So think about that. Today our whole social life is this. We constantly bad talk people, but remember on the day of judgment, how would you like it on the day of judgment that those people you bad talked are going to be very well off, because they will carry all your good deeds, and you are the one who is going to be destitute on the day of judgment because all your good deeds you gave away to the one that you disliked. I mean, how brainless is that? That is why Imam Bukhari Rahmatullah said, if I want to do ghibat, I will do ghibat of my mother, because at least my good deeds will go to my mother who I love and respect. Think about that. My brothers and sisters, the distinction of a Muslim is that he or she enjoins and promotes and helps in what is right and stops what is wrong. A Muslim must also always act for good. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah said, ta'awanu ala al-birri wat-taqwa wa la ta'awanu ala al-ithmi wal-udwan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, help each other in al-birr and taqwa, in piety and in being conscious of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Advise each other, help each other to live lives like that. And la ta'awanu, Allah is giving a hukum. Allah said, do not help one another in ithm wal udwan, in sin and in rebellious things. So if somebody is doing something wrong, do not help them in that. Don't facilitate that. Don't allow them to do that. Try to do your best to stop them from doing that, or at least leave the place. Don't sit there and watch, and don't participate in what they are doing, either actively or passively. It's very, very important. And if you think that passive participation is not important, think passive smoking, for example. If somebody is smoking a cigarette, you don't stop that person, you're sitting in the room, then you are also going to be stinking with that cigarette smoke, and that person's, what he is exhaling or she is exhaling, you are inhaling. So both the lungs of both of you are getting shot, because you are not leaving the place and you are not stopping that other person. It's a good way to understand the importance of enjoining good and forbidding evil, and why even silent participation is equally harmful. It doesn't matter. You can't say, well, I didn't buy the cigarette, I didn't pay for it, I didn't light it, it wasn't in my mouth. It doesn't matter. You still inhaled that smoke, and even though that person paid for it, you got it for free. I mean, that's the only difference. But both of you are now prime candidates for lung cancer and many other things. All right? So think about that. The concept, there is really no concept of a Muslim being a silent witness to wrongdoing. Whatever the wrongdoing may be, there is no concept of a Muslim silently watching that happen and doing nothing about it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the famous hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if you see whosoever, whichever one of you sees anything wrong, stop it with his hand. And if you can't do that, then speak out against it, stop it with your tongue, stop it with your mouth, or if you cannot even do that, then hate it in your heart. Meaning, if you hate something, then you get out of there. Don't stay there. Don't sit there. Don't participate. Don't be in that company. Obviously, you can't say, I hate this, but I'm still sitting here. No, why are you sitting here? So if you hate it, get out of there. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that last thing, which is just hating, not taking any action and not speaking, just hating. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, this is the sign of the weakness of your faith. So therefore, we ask Allah to strengthen our iman, inshallah. My brothers and sisters, there are many evidences of this in the Quran, that the Muslim has been enjoined and has been told and has been ordered to take action and to ensure that good is done and that evil is stopped. So the one who does nothing to stop evil and instead of that participates in it, even if that is passive participation, is considered a partner of the evildoer. Now, again, as I said, music is one of these things we try to ignore and we pretend that it's okay. What is not okay, as I told you, what is natural is not always good. What is instinctive is not always good. It may be instinctive, but civilization, to be civilized, to be a person of honor, means to overcome these urges, to overcome these instinctive things, to overcome some things which are natural, because we know that even though they are natural, they are not good, they are harmful, potentially harmful, they're really harmful, and we don't do them in out of context, and in some cases we don't do them at all. My brothers and sisters, and so the Luqman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَحْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَيَتَّخِذَهَا هُزُوًا أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. And of mankind is he who buys idle talk, which is music, to mislead people from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge, and takes it, the path of Allah, as a mockery, as a joke. For such of them there will be a humiliating torment in the hellfire. We ask Allah to save us from that. The great scholar of Islam, Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu, and the Mufassir of the Quran, he said that this Lahu al-Hadith means singing. And Mujahid radiallahu anhu, he said this means playing the drum. This is in Tafsir al-Tabari. So very, very important to understand. This is how the Sahaba understood, and this is how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained these ayat. Al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullah alayhi said, this ayah was revealed concerning singing and musical instruments, that is woodwind instruments. So he's talking about flutes and so on, and sitar, guitar, all that stuff. And this is in Tafsir Ibn Kathir. The important thing, as I mentioned to you, is prohibition means prohibition of the sound. If someone takes a guitar and makes it into a coffee table, this is fine, right? Playing it because of the sound. If the guitar string is not haram. If you take a guitar string and do something else with it, there's no problem with that. The reason I'm saying that is today, people make those sounds with their mouth, right? It's called beatboxing for some funny reason, I don't know why. And I see even a lot of Islamic or so-called Islamic and Muslim channels using that. And they have some, some fancy fatwa to say that this is permissible. My point is, when Allah said this is prohibited, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said musical instrument which is wind, and especially, I mean, they're all prohibited, but especially wind and string instruments are prohibited. What was he referring to? Is it referring to that piece of wood, or was it referring to the sound that it makes? And basic, simple logic. Try to understand. Don't fool yourself. And then in Surah Al-Isra, I'm giving you evidences in the Quran where it is prohibited. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاسْتَفْزِزْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ وَأَجْلِبْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِخَيْلِكَ وَرَجْلِكَ وَشَارِكُمْ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ وَعِدْهُمْ وَمَا يَعُدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا. And istafziz, befool them gradually, those whom you can among them with your voice, which is the music and so on, and any other call for Allah's disobedience. Make assaults on them with your cavalry and your infantry. Mutually share with them wealth and children by tempting them to earn money by illegal ways, and make promises to them, but shaitan promises them nothing but deceit. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenged shaitan and said, do it, misguide them. How? By music, by suggesting to them things to do which Allah has prohibited, by suggesting to them ways of making money which Allah has made illegal, right? All this interest-based banking and so on and so forth. And make promises to them, which of course shaitan cannot keep the promises. So Allah says shaitan promises them, but what he promises them is only deceit. He cannot keep the promise, he has no power to do that. It was narrated that Mujahid rahmatullah said, and befool them gradually those whom you can among them with your voice. That is, wastafziz man istata'a minhum bisautik, is the voice of shaitan in is singing as well as in falsehood, in telling lies. Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawzi rahmatullah alayhi, he said, this idafa, which is the possessive or genitive construction, that is your voice, serves to make the meaning specific, as with the phrases translated as your cavalry and your infantry later in the same ayat. Everyone who speaks in any way that is not obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everyone who blows into a flute or some other woodwind instrument, or who plays any haram kind of drum, this is the voice of shaitan. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith in Tabarani, Bukhari, Al-Bayhaqi, he said, among my ummah there will certainly be people who will permit zina, silk, alcohol and musical instruments. This hadith, which is a Sahih hadith, and it is collected in Al-Bukhari, At-Tabarani and Al-Bayhaqi. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said, among my ummah there will certainly be people, he said the people will come in the coming generations, who will permit, now listen to the words, who will permit zina, who will permit the use of silk by men, who will permit alcohol, drinking of alcohol, and of course that refers to all kinds of intoxicants, and who will permit musical instruments. Now Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahmatullah alayh, he said that this is a Sahih hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari in his Sahih. The hadith indicates in two ways that musical instruments and enjoyment of listening to music are haram. The first is the fact that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said they permit, which clearly indicates that the things mentioned, including musical instruments, are haram according to the Sharia, but people will permit them. Otherwise, why would you say they will permit? Because if it is already permitted, where is the question of somebody else coming and re-permitting something? So if he's saying they will permit, meaning that they are not permitted, somebody will come and they will try to change the Sharia of Islam. The second thing is the fact that musical instruments are mentioned alongside things which are definitely haram, which is zina and alcohol. So if the musical instruments were not haram, why would they be mentioned alongside these things? And this is from Silsila al-Sahihah by Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala. So in this hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that musical instruments, he is saying these are prohibited. And in the way he said it and the construction of the hadith, Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahmatullah alayhi says that it is clear that these are haram and they are prohibited. And it is clear in two ways. One is, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying, they will permit, people will come who will permit zina and alcohol and the wearing of silk by men and musical instruments. So meaning that these four things, zina is haram, drinking alcohol is haram, fornication, zina is haram, drinking alcohol is haram, for men to wear silk is haram, and musical instruments are haram, but there will be people who will come and they will permit that. So that's one clear indication that they are haram. Second clear indication is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned musical instruments along with three things which are clearly haram. Nobody is going to argue that. Nobody is going to say that in Islam fornication and adultery is permissible. Nobody is going to argue and say in Islam drinking of alcohol is permissible. Even if they are drinking it, they know it is not permissible. Nobody is going to say that silk for men is permissible, because we all know all of these three things are haram. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions musical instruments along with these three things which are already haram, it gives us an indication that musical instruments, listening to them, playing them and so on, is also haram, just like adultery, just like drinking alcohol, just like wearing silk. Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi, he said this hadith indicates that ma'azif are haram, and ma'azif means musical instruments according to the scholars of the Arabic language. And the word includes all such instruments. And this is in Majmu' al-Fatawa. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahmatullah alayhi, he said, and concerning the same topic, similar comments are narrated from Sahal bin Sa'ad as-Sa'adi, Imran ibn Hussein, and many other people. I have got a whole list of, including the Sahaba, like Anas bin Malik, Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, Ummul Mumineen, Abdurrahman ibn Thabit, Al-Ghazi bin Rabi'a, and Abu Umama, Abu Huraira, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Amr. All of these people have mentioned and agreed, and it's based on their understanding that people who came later, like Ibn al-Qayyim himself, rahmatullah alayhi, Ibn Taymiyyah, and others, they extracted this ruling and this meaning, including Hasan al-Basri, rahmatullah alayhi. My brothers and sisters, it's very, very important for us to understand this deen, and to understand this deen in terms of its principles and its concepts, its principles as well as its details of those principles. Very, very important for us to understand this deen in this context, because if we don't understand it like that, then we cannot practice it. And the whole purpose of practice is the whole purpose of understanding is to practice it. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to practice this deen in a way which is pleasing to Him Jalla Jalaluhu. Very, very important for us to understand this and to do this and to practice it in a way which is beneficial for us, and which will be a good reflection of Islam and Muslims for the rest of the world. Now, brothers and sisters, I mentioned to you, and I keep saying again and again, it's not a matter of showing to anybody. It's a matter of doing it because you love Allah, because you love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because you love this deen. Really seriously ask yourself, what is the sense Allah has given us Islam? Some of us were born into it, some of us got it. And alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gave us this beautiful religion. We thank Allah that He gave us a religion which is real. There is no mythology in Islam. It's not a figment of anybody's imagination. It's not the writings of anyone, no matter how holy and scholarly that person might be. This is a deen which comes directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu. It is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, revelation, and revealed to the best of all creation, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Having got this great wealth, what sense does it make not to use it? And the way we use the wealth of Islam is to live by it. What else is there? That is the way to live. To live by Islam is to benefit from Islam. There is no other way. When we benefit because we live by Islam. So this is very, very important for us to keep in mind and to benefit from Islam. And the way to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Islam is to live by Islam. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.